Okay. It's 6:05 on the 9th of December, and we're opening the meeting, the agenda for the Select Board of Town of Plainfield. Any changes to the agenda?
There was the note, fees add under other business to approve excess weight permit for Blair's Forestry hauling.
Right, Carol said that.
Yeah.
We're at tree hauling. Okay, we'll add that in, let's see, where will we add that in?
For the warrants after Josh's report, or?
I had a question for Josh about the weight, though. I wanted to make sure it was okay.
Well, obviously, we're gonna discuss the issue.
Yeah, as long as Josh is here, we'll do it. Okay, he's right here, and
The other thing is.
he has a road commissioner report, so yeah.
Yeah, the other thing is, under approval of draft minutes, we have minutes from both November 25th and December 2nd. So we can approve both sets of minutes.
Okay, great.
And we have all five, select board members here present.
What was the second one you mentioned?
The date, December 2nd,
December.
last weekend,
Okay,
or last week.
great.
And I did have that draft letter to legislators and the governor about the forgiveness of school, state
due to
education,
the-
property taxes.
Yes, you have a draft letter of that? Okay, we can do that at the same. At the end there. Any announcements anyone needs to make? Okay, public comments?
Carl, I have a question. It's Will Colgan from the Planning Commission.
Yes.
As you know, we've been working on draft zoning adoption. And I was about to put a warning in for town meeting when I was discussing with some of the state staff in the planning departments. And they said recently the rural exemption that had small towns vote on zoning has been discontinued, and it now the legislative bodies of even a small town can approve zoning. So in the past, the planning commission, the procedure is the planning commission will hold a public hearing on the zoning, and then with any subsequent changes, pass it on to the select board for their hearing. And then in the past, that's gone to a public vote, but the state recommendation is for even small towns is to have the select board do the approval and then have a 30-day period after that where a rescinding vote could take place. And I just wanted to maybe give you a heads up on that and maybe get some guidance as to how the select board would like to proceed. Do you want to try to do the adoption just with the select board or with a town vote?
Remind us what, oh, go ahead, Dan.
Will, Dan Fingus, when you were talking about us potentially having a hearing for interim rules, there was a 2-week, we had to have a hearing and all that. Is that still something that's required? Is that still something that would happen? Is that ability for folks to weigh in?
Yes, the planning commission hearing and the select board hearing are requirements for adoption. So the question is, does the final adoption take place at the legislative level or a public vote level? And the state's preferred option recommendation is to do it in the legislative level the way larger towns have. But the Plainfield can choose to go either way.
And that is something that we can do we don't have to decide we're doing it, it could be case by case. If it's a small one thing tweak, we could do it one way. And if it's 25 changes, we could do it another way, right?
Well, the way it would happen is we would give you a document with all the changes and you would just go approve it rather than try to do it piecemeal.
No, I'm just saying in the future, I know right now you have a bunch of changes, but if in the future, we pass this and 6 months from now, you realize, oh, you missed something. That would be like a one small change that potentially could happen.
Yes, you could do that. Certainly there will be something that turns up that needs to be changed. It's,
And that would be at the select board level.
Well, it
yes.
could be.
Yes,
It
but
could-
this would, what I'm describing is the whole revision being adopted at the legislative level or the town vote level.
Gotcha. And that's what you need to get a handle on. Did you have
Well,
a-
yeah, just because I have to put the warning in the town for the town meeting.
Yeah.
Well, I had a question, but he answered it, which was
Oh.
that this is permissive. The state law is permissive. We can do it either way.
Exactly.
I guess my personal feeling is that there's been a lot written in different places that it will be by public adoption. And so I'd be loath to change that.
Yep.
That's my personal opinion, except for the big thing. I think going forward, I'd be fine with that, but I just think that people are expecting it at this point, just from what's been written.
I think that's a legitimate point.
So what does that lead you to? That it should be a vote or it should
It
be?
should be a vote,
A town vote?
that this one should be a town. vote,
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think with an overhaul of this, because it's been years in the making and there's lots of different pieces to it, it seems like it would be smarter to be a town vote, and hopefully we have some informational hearings along the way so everyone can feel comfortable with what the changes are.
I mean, I have a question, which is, do all changes need to be kind of voted on together? Is there, I mean, I guess, is it all in or all out, or are there piecemeal variations? I'm just imagining like a room full of townsfolk who agree with most of it, but not all of it. Is there a chance to change it on the fly to support those objections when strenuous?
That happens at the public hearing. So
Yeah.
when the public hearing is for input, and if the changes are, described as minor, then that can just proceed forward. If it's a major overhaul, then you have to go through another hearing process. But it sounds like the select board would be happy to, feel more comfortable with a public vote, and I can work with that. Just wanted to have some guidance going forward.
Okay, and as Dan mentioned, that if there's a minor change later, we could do it at the select board level.
Yes, amendments can be done. Yeah, apparently all changes, major or minor, can be done at the legislative level, but this one, we'll just go ahead and proceed with the town vote.
Okay,
Okay,
Dan?
that was it. Thank you.
thank you, Will. Thanks.
Thank you,
Yep.
Will.
Will, just wanted to go through, so do you think that all hurdles will be cleared before town meeting, or will this be a special election after town meeting?
Can the timing will be?
Well, I think he's ready to warn it right now, so
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think you can,
that's what he said.
you can warn it right now.
Well, I'd like to, I was talking with Bram about putting a notice in the warning for town meeting that simply says, shall the town vote to approve the draft zoning as approved by the select board? Because by that time, the select board will have approved the draft to go to vote. And if it hasn't happened yet, then that warning we just won't hold the vote that day at town meeting. It would be a placeholder.
Yeah,
So
Okay.
that's, I was gonna ask that warning be put in for the town meeting, that one sentence.
it sounds like that's what you should do. But we'll be hearing more about it before the meeting, before the town.
Oh,
meeting,
yeah,
Because
yeah,
we
I've
have
got-
to talk about
yeah,
it.
Yeah.
the town can't vote on it until the planning commission has held its public hearing and the select board has held its public hearing and approved the document for a vote.
Okay,
This warning is just to have it, because we got to put the warning in for town meeting now to have it ready.
right. That feel okay?
Yeah.
Folks?
Yeah.
Okay, I guess you got your direction.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Will.
Yep, okay, thanks.
Okay, town clerk report. Ram?
Just, I think I had brought up two items that I think are on the agenda, the, health safety.
I think this, this is only for the room and there's just two of you. So as long as you sit closer, Graham, I think you're
Oh, yeah,
probably
that's
fine.
Yeah, you can be heard on the owl.
I think it's on the agenda, talking about the health savings account versus the health retirement account.
Mhm.
That's just, wanted some clarification on that. And, I think the other thing that I wanted to talk about is on that, on the agenda later on.
Well, it also says discuss extending
domestic
town employee
partners.
medical coverage. to
Yeah, domestic
partners.
partner, discussion is just two things that's, in going over the Blue Cross Blue Shield, but I think that's about it.
Okay,
What are the questions?
I mean, we can talk about it now.
Well, that's, it's,
in
this
your
is the time, your
Okay.
report is.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that's the two
Right.
things that are on the report.
Right, so, the two, right, the question is really, some towns don't have, health savings accounts or health retirement accounts. These mechanisms are designed to cover deductibles for, employees. We have, it's a good program, we're signing up for, but it is a high deductible program. And usually we have had in the past health retirement accounts and health savings accounts. I have shared my frustration working with, the organization that runs the current health retirement accounts, which we have for the things, and, many people have approached me in favor of switching to, health savings accounts. I have contacted a expert on this who works for, he basically is the broker for the Vermont League of Town and Cities, which we get our Blue Cross Blue Shield program for, and I needed some clarification. He didn't get back to me today. I think that I would recommend to the select board that we continue to offer this sort of program. Like, for example, I know East Montpelier does not offer HSAs or HRAs, but East Montpelier has a platinum plan that is 100% covered. So I
okay,
think that I think that there is expectation.
What are the cost implications? Are there cost implications to
Well,
changing from one to the other?
I don't have the specifics of what how the different programs, I know I've been talking at length with Peter regarding getting a firm handle on what our current HRA entails in terms of commitment to the employee. It's very confusing. I think that, I mean, my ballpark guess would be that it would be a layout non-refundable of probably, in the neighborhood of, I don't know if it's, I don't know, Peter, what do you think?
Well, it's interesting because Bram has tried to get me in so I could work with the people there. And I was finally able to connect earlier today and had about an hour-long online work session with the one of the customer service rep people there. So I now understand what the accounts are that we're looking at. Basically, we sign up under the health reimbursement accounts, which is owned by the town, as opposed to a savings account, which is owned by the employee, okay? And each year there is a number that is chosen by the town as to what are, and I'm blanking on the terminology. I could look it up here in a second. It's not the deductible, but it's an amount that we're supposed to, that we're on the hook for if an employee files a claim. Now, even though we're not paying that full amount ahead of time, the employee is credited with that full amount as what they can draw down. And currently we have one employee who has been there a while, who can draw down more than their deductible, but if they got hurt badly, they might need that over a couple of years. But in the meantime, each year, the town pays a percent. It's called a PEG percent, and we pay 15%. So our actual outlay for the past couple of years is $918. And then if someone uses
A month or a year?
a year,
Okay.
okay, usually paid at the beginning of the year. And then like if someone uses it, we've had one employee who has used it this year 3 times for a total of about $350 and change. And what happens is that we then get a bill for that $350 and we pay that bill. And the balance goes back to $918. So if you look at the flow charts, it all trues up to this 918. Now, if I'm an employee and there's currently 2, Josh is a person on an account, but he has 0 in it because he just got there. But we have 2 other employees who have a fair amount. There's a total of $14,000 that we're technically on the hook for. So there may be an expectation from those 2 employees that that's there for them. However, one of them has said to me on numerous occasions that they prefer an HSA, which is fairly common.
Right, and I would point out that both Peter and I have been on the phone with the people at Health Equity, and they cannot explain what the derivations of the figures are. They
No.
literally, like, in other words,
No,
I
the-
asked specifically,
Yes.
how
Did you come up with that? And she told me today, I will find out and get back to you, but she could not do that. However, so I would just park that and say there may be an expectation, the employee, that there is some tangible benefit which they are due.
So if
So
someone-
if we were to switch,
So wait, but if someone is hurt.
Yep.
And they have, $10,000 in their account, and so then they draw out the $10,000, we would then get a bill for the $10,000?
no, we would get a bill for, this is where it interfaces with the deductible caps within their Blue Cross Blue Shield plan, because
so
this is they're
It's
managed.
paying
jointly.
it's paying for the deductible.
It's paying for part of the deductible. However, because in 2 cases, they are low users, their online health equity balance is higher than an annual deductible. So if they're seriously injured and it goes over 2 years, you could see where they might want to draw into that. So just park that for a moment. If we switch to an HSA, one of the things I was trying to find out is, so how much money does Health Equity actually have of Plainfield's money in cash right now? Right, so there's $14,000, as Graham says, is in virtual dollars, right? This is like what we're on the hook for, but they actually only have $918 of Plainfield's money at the moment, okay? So if we were to switch to HSAs, we would have to decide how much we were going to give each year to however many employees were eligible for that. So rather than paying 918 and being on the hook for another amount, we would pay a lump sum and we wouldn't be on the hook for anything else. Plus, the employee always has the option of adding pre-tax money to their own account as an HSA. But so our initial cash outlays may be more, right? But like take that 918 and round it up to 1,000. If you said, okay, we'll put $1,000 donation for each town employee who's eligible, it would cost us, $5,000, $6,000, $9,000 a year. But that's it, and we wouldn't be liable for anything else. So those are the kind of trade-offs that you're dealing with.
And the HSAs does the money just stay there? Like, does it?
It's the employee's account.
Yes, but I'm saying, they use it when they need to pay for deductibles and stuff. What if
Yes,
they
and in
don't need
fact,
to use it for deductibles and then they leave?
it's still theirs.
Yeah, they would.
They still own
They
it.
would retain it. It's
Okay.
there. In other words, you just think of it as they control
Got
the
it.
money.
And
It's a
would
bank
it,
account.
and would it be?
Well, I know, but it's a bank account where you only can take money out of it for
But it's in
specific
your name.
uses. No, I get that. I was just like,
You can only use it
for very specific uses.
for very specific
Yeah.
uses. And since you put pre-tax money in, if you took it out, it's then taxable.
Well, yeah.
So that's a different thing.
Is the $1,000 contribution from the town yearly or one time?
It would be whatever we chose to do.
Whatever we chose.
I just picked a round number to give you an
It's
example.
gonna go into the employee's account, so.
Well, I guess
if-
part of it would be what kind of numbers would make sense with what other towns are doing, and if we're only seeing folks using it pretty low amounts, like how much do we actually have to put in for it to be a meaningful?
We've had in the past, and I went back and looked at the records of 2016, where we had high users who used, you know, $4, $5, $6,000 a year out of their HRA.
Mm.
So
gosh.
My, one thing to keep in mind is like, we have a distinction here that we're not really like elaborating on, and it's the distinction between an available benefit versus a compensation. And the HSA is we are compensating with real dollars to offset the insane world of health insurance versus kind of playing a shell game with money so that we don't have to outlay the money, you know, in the event of like everyone's good fortune, which I'm sure at times would have made good financial sense. My understanding is that the not speaking for me, but speaking for other employees of the town, there is a preference for savings account. And part of that is not just like, is this going to get my medical bills paid, but is that it actually feels and is real compensation change versus a offered benefit that goes away absent your employment. I think that's an important distinction to consider. Now, speaking personally, what will happen is I will be paying my full out-of-pocket deductible regardless of whatever plan we choose, like, because or whatever is the theoretical highest amount that I would personally pay. And that's simply because the medication that I take, which allows me to make these lovely spreadsheets, is very expensive. It is $10 a day. So like every day, you know, I can, if I skip, I have a bad day. And if I skip a couple days, I have a very sad day. So like the ability to be able to add more personal income to buffer that scenario would be extremely beneficial and to me in a high deductible plan. So otherwise it's every 28 days, you know, like until I hit my deductible, I'm paying, you know, like $125 at 50% or somewhere thereabouts. So it's like, that's real, like $10 a day is a lot.
Mhm.
And, you know, and the town, my current compensation for the town at $45,000, $10 a day is a lot of that amount as well.
May I ask Bram, who's another town employee, sitting here before us now, if you have personal feelings about this?
Well,
Because we seem to be leaning toward consensus amongst town employees.
I mean, I think that I'm representing the town employees, in terms of the expectation of the town continuing to have some sort of support. And in that fashion, I would say the health savings account, from my point of view, is the better route. And the reason is not, it has to do with very, very bad experiences with the HRA
Yeah.
people. I don't have confidence in their ability to deliver whatever they're supposed to. So, and they're the exclusive vendor for our particular plan. In other words, we don't have a choice. We have to use them if we choose an HRA. If we use the health savings account, I'm exploring, and one of the questions to the insurance expert is this something that we can run on our own? Simply give the employee or whatever.
Yeah, so if I understand this right, the HSA would allow the employee to have an account that they have control over.
Correct.
and it will build if they don't
Yeah,
use
if
it.
they build it, whatever,
And-
the town is.
It's out of the town's
It's
hands.
out of the town's interest, and
Okay.
I think, you know. Whatever the merits of the HRA are in terms of execution. It's, I mean, I don't know.
It sounds easier for the town
Unless-
to have the
Less
HSA,
staff time working.
less
on
staff
it.
time, less.
Yeah, I mean,
Risk of
it's a lot of.
problems. Yeah.
It is administratively easier to do that. I would also point out that, this is the Blue Cross Blue Shield health plan spreadsheet. And these dots show which of the plans are compatible with HRAs and HSAs. And so our gold CDHP plan is compatible with both.
Okay,
But the HSAs are only compatible with 5 of all the plans, whereas all the plans are compatible with HRAs. So as long as we stick with the CDHP, we can use the HSAs.
okay.
So
It sounds like we're leaning that way. Philip is on the line up above. Go ahead.
Hi, I just one point. Alicia had a health savings plan. And one of the questions I think you guys need to make sure you ask is how much of the employee's health savings plan will roll over. It doesn't all roll over, at least the one that she had.
There's a federal limit.
Okay, I think there's a federal limit. So just as an example, we, through the Vermont State Colleges, I have had and have excellent medical. Alicia only used the health savings plan, which we didn't really use most of the year. So to spend the money over several years, we went on an eyeglass spending spree.
That's it.
Okay, so just to let you know that that's a really important question for you guys to ask.
What's the limit that can?
You know, what's the limit for each employee that can get rolled over?
Thank you. That's good advice. I
You're
don't know if we know
welcome.
the answer tonight, but we could ask that question.
no, we had asked rollover questions and the board had asked rollover questions the past several years about the HRAs. And there was a number that the board chose that it was doing, which was $1,000 a year was the last that appeared in the minutes. But
Okay,
we didn't have that discussion about HSAs.
yeah, go ahead.
So, I'm guessing since we don't know what amount to put in and we don't have all the details, that there's still some investigation that needs to happen before there's a proposal that we would vote on.
I think that's fair. I think we're close.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say my sense is that HSAs is preferred for a number of reasons, but we just need to find out those points. So
And I don't know if, I know there's a spreadsheet somewhere of if other towns are doing it, if there's an amount they're using and why, and maybe if you talk to the LCT person, just so that we're, you know, we have some understanding of what amounts make sense, because you could just pick a number out of the air, but I don't know if that's helpful.
And you have to get this done by the end of the month, correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, so next meeting, if we could come up with those answers, we
Yeah.
could consider it
Sure.
our next meeting.
Moving the discussion along, the issue of domestic partner, at present. We don't have a provision in our dental and Blue Cross Blue Shield to extend coverage to domestic partner, and that's different from family member. And there are, Peter actually has a sheet of what it means to be a domestic partner, you know, you live together, that family, all the list. But what I this in the case of Plainfield, this really impacts one employee. So this isn't.
Right now.
Bigger?
I guess
Right
I
now.
just want to qualify.
Right now.
Right now.
Right, yeah, at present, yeah, I'm saying, in other words, whatever your decision is at present, it's not gonna be a big dollar change, so.
Yes,
I'm for this. I'd also say this is one of the reasons I asked Peter last meeting, what does dependent mean? Because I actually wanted to get to a definition, so we didn't have a problem like this where we now come back and have to re-litigate who's getting coverage again.
Well,
That's why I thought we would
depend,
potentially get.
domestic partner is not a dependent.
Well, I know, and neither is a spouse. And so that's why when we voted last week to allow dependents onto healthcare, I thought we were using the wrong language, but that's the proposal that you put forward.
Well, this domestic partner came up this week when
Yes.
when we went to do the thing. I did send Bram the list this afternoon when I was just trying to find it here for you about the domestic partners, but domestic partners are allowed under Vermont law. There's a specific definition of what a domestic partner is for health insurance purposes. It's what the state employees union does, et cetera. I would recommend that we do it, and if I could find the list, I could read it. But basically says you're committed to each other. You're not married to somebody else. You've lived with each other for at least 6 months. And you are essentially a spouse, except in title.
Josh?
In the small group employee enrollment and change form. The option is employee and spouse, parent, including party to a civil union / domestic partner, close parentheses. So there's no like Blue Cross Blue Shield, it's like, that's the language they're using.
Yes.
Consistent.
Yeah. The enrollment form actually spells that. There's a form that the employee has to sign and certify that they meet those conditions. And that's on Blue Cross's page.
I'm just saying that as we're cleaning up this language, like,
Yes.
not all spouses are dependents.
Right.
So what we passed last week was allowing employees to have a dependence on their insurance, not spouses. That's, I mean, I'm telling you the language you
Okay.
proposed, and then I tried to
Okay.
clean it up last
Okay.
week, and you
Okay.
said, no, this is fine. But that's what we approved last week, was dependence.
I'm not remembering all the context of the discussion because, and I may be getting confused with my tax training because
Yeah.
dependent there
Yeah.
means something different as
different.
well.
So I think we just want to maybe clarify that spouses and domestic partners are also included in this healthcare.
Yes.
So do we need a new motion? It sounds like we
Yes.
just need a new motion. A motion to include spouses, domestic partnerships, and dependents on healthcare plans for all town employees.
Second.
Any discussion?
I
All
guess,
those in favor?
well, one little technical discussion is, do we need to, can we just add that on to the next, or do we have to remove last week's? Do we?
Just clarifying.
No, just clarifying.
we're clarifying.
Then no
uh,
more discussion, thank
The
you.
existing, yeah. So we'll vote all those in favor, say aye.
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 I'll contact Blue Cross Blue Shield, and Delta Dental tomorrow to tell them of the change.
Great, thank you. And I forgot to announce that Patty is with us, but she's on the screen.
Here I
So-
am.
Thank you for the vote, Patty.
Yeah.
And it was unanimous. Thanks, Brad.
Thanks, Brad.
Okay. Town treasurer, Josh.
We've, in the last week or so, we finally have moved the ARPA funds over to the general fund to cover ongoing expenses. And we have made our first payment of the S1 pool tax. Our collection came up just around $200,000 short of what the billed amount was, I believe. And there's we have to go back and confirm some numbers there to see if, just to make sure, okay, did everyone billed correctly? Did we miss something here? But it has been a very short return, like compared to past years. Based on, anecdotally what Fran has said, so. But it isn't going to cause any undue problems in paying the school tax on time to the supervisory union, and not concerned about that. The other thing,
Just so we collected $200,000 less than the bill we got, or than what we expected.
yeah, it came in, and I'm rounding up a little, but we did have a little bit of a shortfall in what was paid timely.
Got it.
And, I'm gonna, because I've been occupied with a lot of other things, haven't had time to really dig into like why that may have been the case, so I'm investigating that.
Are we still paying the full amount to the supervisory union?
We will pay the full amount on their timeline that they expect. And between the, you know, between moving the ARPA funds, bond bank coming through, and a third and fourth thing, like, we're not in any, it's not a problem.
Well, my concern is just like if there was an error in what the bill they sent us or something like,
And I don't know that.
yeah, well, that's what I'm saying, before we pay the full amount, when we're getting different numbers. Yeah, I know. That's what I just wanted to make sure is that there's
Yeah,
not some sort of,
I'm not concerned about it.
Okay.
You know, in terms of like cash flow, we're fine. The, you know, we're a little shy of, 654,781 currently. And then that doesn't include some deposits coming. And we're with, you know, with the, in terms of like grants that we're expecting to come through soon, still waiting for FHWA for 2023. I have it on my to-do list to call Ross Gown about that. And then I spoke today with Judy Cyprian. We went over the social concerns numbers in preparation for town report. And I spoke with Jonathan Matthews about the fire department budget, which we're gonna go over later, and those funds with today. That's kind of most of what happened this week.
Yeah, I'm not too concerned about the cash flow for all the reasons you just mentioned, but we did abate roughly $40,000, which would account for some of that, but that there's still a big chunk left to get to 200,000. So whether
Yeah.
we didn't set the tax rate right, or there's an error somewhere, or some combination thereof.
This is actually my first rodeo.
Yeah, right.
So, like, it went about as well as I could have expected. But I don't have a clear reason, but it's not, I'm not worried about it. I'm just like, it's something that, felt out of sync with what I would have expected considering but in the large part, like, you know, we just have to go back and review that. Also on Friday, I had an extensive meeting with, our new auditor, Karen Jones, and we went over, we spent a great deal of time, defining the procedure of how we want to work together and document that and make sure that, we have a clear, like, workflow that anyone can, from the outside, look at and see. And we worked on, you know, essentially, like, what is the way that, the auditor should be approaching, like, the monthly close and things like that.
Is that feeling like he's coming up to speed reasonably well for you?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, great,
oh, yeah, no, I'm super,
very
super
important
excited to work with you.
position. Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
Any questions for Josh? Okay. Review and sign bond bank loan documents. You want to talk about that, or is that?
I believe they're in your yellow folder. I think, Crazy Last we covered last meeting. I didn't really have anything to add to that today. Because,
So I see two documents that are engineering services,
that's different.
which has to go,
That's not the bond.
No.
I know,
Okay.
I know, I'm just not seeing the bond bank information.
Yeah, I didn't see any bond bank information either. I remember we spoke to the guy, he was on Zoom last time.
I can go back and whatever came in and get those documents over here.
If we need a signature, we'll need that,
I
yeah.
mean, maybe make the motion with this, we reviewed this with the bond bank
Yes,
person at the previous meeting. We maybe make the motion now to sign it, or did it need to be signed within the frame of the meeting itself?
I don't think it has to be, but we've already kind of made this decision that we're accepting
True.
the offer, correct?
Why don't I go back and get the documents?
It would be helpful to see it, I guess. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Baron.
Let's jump ahead. So this has to do with the engineering contract. That has to do with the village expansion. I think I have two copies here. I don't know quite why.
They were sent as two PDFs because one has the price tag on it and the other one
Ah,
doesn't.
I see, I see there.
But otherwise, they're very similar.
Otherwise, they're identical.
They're
Yeah, I
identical,
think
yeah.
that's like a sort of ones for if you want to circulate it to an audience that doesn't see the price or something.
Yeah,
I can provide a little background on this.
yeah, I guess that would be useful, please.
So, the village expansion project, as we go to try to develop a proposal with a lot of, we have a community. Workshop planned, some people call it a design charrette, where we are looking to develop some layouts of the land, which is part of the process of putting together a broader proposal. And in order to look at that, we need to have some design criteria from an engineer to say what the approach modes might look like, because we can do layouts, but there's only 3 places that roads can actually come into the property. And we're trying to also develop a tentative sense of budget as we do our financial modeling. So we received funds. The village expansion project is a group of people. It is not an entity. It's a group of citizens in town. And we had spoken with the town about receiving some funds from the Vermont Community Foundation specifically for this purpose. We have received those funds, but because they are now town funds, we need the approval. We did follow the town purchasing policy in soliciting this particular proposal. And so in order to dispense the funds, they have to go to the select board to actually be spent, even though they were received with this specific intention. It just as a little bit of additional background, I've spoken with some folks about this. The committee intends to hold a number of public information sessions, but particularly there is going to be a design workshop in February. The plan is to develop a design. We expect somewhere between 80 and 100 people to show up for that. We already have 30 people who've RSVP'd, and I know a dozen beyond that who said that they're coming. So we do expect quite a good turnout. The plan after that is to put a measure for vote at town meeting, of which I will be coming back to you guys with some specific proposed language, because the Vermont Community Foundation has also offered to loan the money to finance this project at quote low to no interest. I have a conversation on the 17th with them to try to identify a term sheet that we can move forward on. But that obviously that would be borrowing money, which is in a more conventional situation, which would have to go up for town vote. So that does need to be warned. And then I have another question after that, but I don't want to take a bigger time. And you're gonna warn, you have to warn before you have the design draft.
No, that already happened.
Well, so we are sending out a mailing that. No, I'm saying the to get on the town meeting. Yes. Vote. We need to. It has to be done by the 20-something of January. So that was actually a question that I had, is we have in our, when we looked at it, it was like the 20th of January, but I don't know if you guys have a deadline, because it has. Well, it's a state election law thing. Okay, but in order to get on the town meeting, it has to be approved by the select board to stand on the town meeting, otherwise we have to collect signatures. But I don't know what the deadline you guys have is in order for me to present something to you, for you to discuss, to actually put up for town meeting.
Well, we're gonna have a select board meeting in January.
Okay,
Uh,
get early in January.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that would be the,
Should be January 13th.
yes.
There's a
Okay.
handout.
That would be the one to get on the agenda for.
Okay,
And with whatever information you can get us ahead of time
Yes.
and documentation that we need to act on would be great.
Carl, there's a hand up on the Zoom.
Philip Parisi again.
Oh, Philip, yes, go ahead.
Hi, it's me. Is this document or documents that Arian has given to you, is that available someplace? And what is actually the cost for the engineer? Because that's not being mentioned right now. And I'm assuming that the town is paying for that?
No, well, let me ask Arian to answer that question.
Okay, great. Let me mute myself.
So Phil, we received money, the town, as a fiscal agent sort of for this, received money of $35,000 for preliminary engineering from the Vermont Community Foundation. So there's no taxpayer dollars at play here, and these funds were received specifically to fund this engineering for this project in a preliminary manner, where we look at some of these, I would say, design criteria that we need to have an engineer look at so that we don't try to even propose anything that's unreasonable. And the actual price tag for this is 30,000 of that 35,000. Thank you.
Okay, and just let me just clarify, when we did the site visit, where we walked up to look at parcel B, is that one of the access egress points that is going to be surveyed by the engineer?
That access road is going to be looked at, yes.
Okay, and where are the other two access points?
From
You-
East Hill,
Yeah,
and we're trying to see if there's any way to come up from parcel A, but that is a little bit less clear at this time.
well, if you're gonna have
The
somebody,
western-
okay, if you're gonna have somebody look at parcel A, because we're right underneath parcel A, and we do have a right of way access in our deed, we want to be involved in when that structural engineer shows up. Because if we're not going to be involved in that, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be very upset, because you know I'm upset about this to begin with. And it's really not a smiling manner. I know you're trying to be nice, but I'm pretty distressed about this. And if you're looking at our right of way, we need to absolutely be involved in it. And if we're not, I'm gonna make a really big stink. I'm trying to be pragmatically aggressive about this, without being aggressive and being really hostile. Okay, so I want to lay it out on the table. I want nobody to have any surprises about how I particularly feel about this. Now, Alicia has some other feelings about this that are, I would say to some degree, a little bit more intellectual and rational than I'm being, but I'm pretty adamant that I'm opposed to this flat out. But if you're looking at parcel A, we need to be involved, period. If not, I'm gonna find a way to make a really big stink about it. So I wanted to be on the record that that's it. So that's what I have to say. I don't know how you're gonna deal with that. We are 100% available. I'm assuming this is gonna happen before February.
We're not looking at that right away, Phil.
Oh, okay. Well, in any case, we're pretty much available 24/7, except for a very short period of time in February. Okay, so when you're working this out, Arian, if you could extend us the courtesy, because I'm really doing my best to be as courteous as I can be about this, I would really like you to get in touch with Alicia and I so that we're involved in the discussion of parcel A. Because where parcel B access and egress is a little bit over 100 feet from where our driveway is. I kind of did it with my feet. I didn't actually get a measurement, but it's more or less about 100 feet away. That to me seems pretty reasonable in terms of access and egress. So that's just what I need to lay on the table.
Okay, thank you. We have a question.
Arian, having looked over the documents, and thank you for sending them. What I don't see specifically is what the deliverable is, other than that they will have a large colorful poster for town meeting.
So the
It just sort of describes what they're gonna do, but it doesn't say we're gonna have X product by such and such a time or another. Do you have a idea of what that is?
So, yeah, so the essential, just to get, I'll summarize it, it is, we're looking primarily at, three different things. One of them is access roads, the other is water and sewer, and the last one is stormwater. And stormwater is actually surprisingly more complicated than it sounds. And so they are going to have preliminary conceptual designs with preliminary pricing on those three aspects, with certain assumptions being made about how the interior road layout will be in terms of linear footage, because there's no proposal that is an intention to design that as a community process on the design workshop day in February. But we have to come up with an average number in order to develop some very preliminary pricing so that we can put together a budget that can be warned ahead of the, we're working on a little bit of a compressed time frame, in part driven by town meeting, because if we miss the cycle, we miss the cycle, and that's problematic. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, as any engineering project, you're looking for answers and it has to be analyzed by engineering to get the answers. So it's kind of hard to have answers before it's designed.
And we don't want to hold a community design process where we can design something that turns out to be impossible to actually do.
Well, or yeah, in violation of some
Or yeah.
state regulation or something like that. That's what we don't want.
Yeah.
I have one minor update, is that in consultation, looking at the town's insurance requirements, they did update the insurance, the liability insurance to $1 million, and I have an update of that specific page.
I'm sorry, who's?
This is in the contract. They had specified $100,000 of liability insurance, and that was updated to $1 million.
$1 million.
To be as it's standard with the towns, like more. And so that is an updated page that I have, that I requested and received this afternoon.
Okay,
So that's one minor amendment, that just to say, it doesn't change the cover sheet.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I could make just one more point, I know that you
Yes.
guys have a tight on time. If there's a lot that we have to get through for this project to move forward, and if it were to be passed, if the lending were to be passed at town meeting in order for the project to advance, at some point, it would be a good idea, I think, to have some sort of town designated, more official body that were tasked with overseeing the project, which we may have additional requirements. This is a question that's been posed by some within the steering committee, and it's not something that we definitively need to answer right now, but I wanted to put it out there as something that we probably should consider. And Dan, you have some. Yeah, so.
oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm a kind of a member of the Village Expansion Steering Committee, at least trying to follow along with what's going on. And I know George Springston, who is on Zoom, is just wondering at what point or when we would have an official committee, especially as be doing official functions, if there's an official vote to support this is from the town. And so I do think, for me at least, at that point, once we've had an official proposal that's been voted on by the town, we should create an official committee, which would, then have open meetings law and all that stuff. And I think there is already a website available. There's already information being shared weekly out to everyone and anybody who reaches out to Arian to ask questions gets information pretty quickly as well. I don't know how he sometimes responds as quickly as he does with as much information as he does. So I would just say that it seems to me like we should keep, stay abreast of this, but we'll hold off on putting a public committee together until we've actually, as a town, decided that this is a proposal we want to back and move forward on.
Yeah, it's not a project yet.
Yeah.
We're studying it to see if it is a project.
Two hands, George and Philip again.
Yes, George?
Yeah, hi, folks. Hey, following up on what Arian had just said, I think it's really critical that this whole process be conducted out in the open. There's good information on the website, but I think it needs to go beyond that, by which I mean the project website. I think it's really important that the meetings of the steering committee be open to the public, that agendas be posted and that minutes be distributed, just as if this was an official town committee. Because I think that's how you're really going to answer a lot of concerns. And we've got folks in the community, as you hear tonight, that have very strong concerns about this, neighbors and perhaps others as well. So I think that would help the process.
Okay, Peter?
As a select board member, I've wrestled with, is this a town project or not? And the answer I've come up at this point is it's not yet. The voters haven't said that yet. There's a ad hoc steering committee that's been meeting and I think doing a good job. They've been doing things like coming to the planning commission for zoning bylaws changes, which are required. We would have to have certain things in place in order to obtain the state's newly sanctioned neighborhood development area, NDA. And there's a good website on the State of Vermont Department of Housing and Community Development that explains the whole NDA process. You can look at the application form. There's a handbook on there. I found it terribly informative as to what is and could be expected should a project like this go forward. Interestingly, if you look at the very first line on the application, it says who's the applicant. And it can be a private person, private entity, a developer, or it can be the municipality. And at this point, we haven't decided. So it's, you know, I would agree with Dan, you know, that the time to make a formal committee is once the town has expressed its feelings one way or the other. And then, yes, a formal committee, and it should be subject to open meeting law and all of that kind of stuff. In the meantime, in response to George's request for that, I don't think it's up to us as the select board to say that. I think we can encourage it, but that's about as far as we can go.
I mean, I think, yeah, to reflect George, what I heard is that there's no need to wait until it is a formal committee, if it becomes one, to grow the transparency of the process. That is the exploration of the feasibility of this work. And, you know, there are 3 members at least of that ad hoc committee in the room right now. And so just to like hear that maybe it does make sense to build consensus in town.
I think, you know, we have a couple different subcommittees and we have 3 committee meetings between now and town meeting. As you guys know from your public select board meetings, the conversations can be broad and can take a lot of time in these larger groups. It's, you know, we have a group of about 17 people meeting in these steering committee meetings that we try to keep to an hour and a half out of sort of everybody's time commitment. I think our efforts may be better spent in outreach if we focus on actually holding community discussions with question and answers where we can really engage people rather than having people jump into the middle of our process in a way that eats up a lot of the limited time that we have to plan and organize. And so, you know, we also have had quite a few false starts in this path. And the thing that we have wanted to avoid is sending people with a bunch of, like, you know, getting some false ideas out there that may actually not go anywhere. We discovered a lot more wetland on this property than we originally anticipated. And if we had had ideas out there circulating that would have said, oh, well, we could do it like this, we could do it like that, we could have had tremendous public opposition over something that is really not an issue at all. And so there is a certain amount when ideas are nascent, putting them out there half-baked, I think, is actually counterproductive and slows the process down. We are getting to the point where we have some real information that's available. We actually have a wetlands delineation. It's still preliminary, but boy, I think it's pretty darn close. As soon as we got that, it is up on the website and available. It may be hard to read, but it is there. So, you know, as we have concrete things, getting those out there into the public makes a lot of sense. To put things that are sort of little rabbit holes that we go down as part of our process seems like actually to me that it's counterproductive to a public discussion, because if you have a conversation in a room with a few people, sometimes you can get your point across pretty clearly, but if you put things out there that can then go on and kick on a life of their own, I think that can give you, it can really be counterproductive. That's my personal feeling. It is something we are going to discuss in our steering committee meeting a little bit on Wednesday, but
I'd like to affirm that it remains the prerogative of the ad hoc committee working on this to determine the efficacy of the tools of transparency that are being called for popularly. And so, thank you for working with both your own good knowing, the team's good knowing, and the town's desire to be kept abreast.
I think the real conversation that we will focus on most of this Wednesday is how can we get out more information as effectively and efficiently as well? How can we have more conversations and bring more knowledge to the table? That's a real thing. As you guys know, publishing minutes doesn't create transparency in and of itself. Having open meetings doesn't create transparency necessarily in and of itself. How do we get out there what the substance of these ideas are and have real conversations about them that are productive? That would be my goal. And I think everybody shares that goal. We may just have a little bit of a debate about how the best way is to get there.
I'm gonna recognize Philip.
Philip, is your hand up?
Yes,
From-
it
from this
is.
question? Okay,
When I raised my hand, I was curious to know what the $1 million liability is actually for. That wasn't clear. And then I have some other comments about what just got said. So if Arian can answer that question, I would appreciate it.
So anytime you engage a contractor to do anybody, especially if you're a town, whether that's like mow your lawn or plow your sidewalks, you have to have a certain amount of liability insurance, and the standard minimum number is $1 million. And so I just, after consulting that was a town requirement, asked them to update their proposal to be consistent with that. Does that answer your question, Phil?
Yes, and that's being covered by the $35,000 from the grant?
It's just, they're a company and they have insurance that includes liability insurance, and it's just specifying in this contract that we.
Oh, that they'll be able to cover that $1 million if there's a problem.
Exactly.
Okay, great. All right, now, I wanna thank George and I wanna thank Rose for advocating George's position. I understand what Peter is saying, that this is not a town sanctioned committee and it's an ad hoc committee. That's fine. I would encourage the select board to endorse some community engagement, even if it's curtailed engagement, to be able to sit in on these steering committee meetings. They can be structured where during a steering committee meeting, I understand you got set, like Aaron said, 17 people, you could set up some parameters. This is a no questions meeting, but that provides those of us that would want to be engaged in at least listening to what was going on, that we could then formulate questions or provide insight outside of the meeting, but to not be fully aware of what's going on in those meetings creates, in my mind, a diminishment of what it appears everyone is trying to achieve here is a grassroots democratic process. We have enough problems with our democracy being threatened on January 20th. We do not have to engage in that at the grassroots level. I strongly believe that we as a community, if we're invited and there are set parameters on what our conduct would be, which would basically mean, in my mind, that we would not directly engage during the meeting, but it would give us the opportunity to engage between these several meetings that are going to happen between now and February, instead of just getting what's out there. I understand that there's a lot of energy and thought, and the goal of this project has a lot of community needs in there. Even though I'm against it, I understand the overarching piece, but to exclude us as a community, especially excluding us those of us that would be directly affected by this project on every possible level, to not even be able to sit in and listen in on it, I think that you're doing the community a disservice. And Peter, with all due respect, I have to disagree with you on that one point. Okay, I think you made all sorts of great points, but I do have to disagree. That's what I'm throwing out on the table. Wherever it falls, fine. It may not stick to the wall, but I think that we should at least be flies on the wall for this is probably a really good thing. They could set parameters. You can come in, but you're not able to ask any questions. You can send it to the steering committee afterwards so that the steering committee can look at it and address it at a more appropriate time.
Okay, Peter, Philip, I think we've got it, and I'm gonna suggest that Arian come up with a way to have listen in, but we need to move on. We've got a lot tonight.
Yeah, I'll just, because I don't think you said the date, Arian, but the design,
February
February eighth,
Saturday.
10 a.m., right?
Yeah, 10 a.m.
Here in this room.
10 to 3.
And it
yeah.
sounds like the steering committee is discussing on Wednesday about maybe adding some more sessions of public input in
Correct.
January in the lead up to that design session, right?
Yeah.
So there may be 2, 3, 4 different
We
opportunities.
got that's
for public
a big
input.
topic on the agenda for Wednesday. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, I think we need to move on. So you need
Yeah. if you-
We need a motion.
Yeah,
you need a motion.
can I make a motion to approve using $30,000 of grant funds for engineering services from Engineering Ventures?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Did not hear from Patty.
Aye.
Thank you, Patty.
Thank you, Patty.
And is there an authorization for me to sign if that's, it looks like my name was on the signature page.
Just on the second page, that's it.
Yeah,
Move that Carl be authorized to sign.
Second.
all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And I'll sign on behalf of the select board.
And I can get a copy of that from Kristen tomorrow. Is that the best way to get it? Because I know.
I'm sorry,
And I can get a copy of that tomorrow from Kristen.
yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, or Bram. Or...
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Just for the formality, Patty, aye.
Yeah, aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Can I make a request to the board? We have our fire chief sitting here, and I don't want to tie him up. Can we swap the? Are you okay? I just feel you're a busy guy, I know. Okay, we'll keep going. We have the bond bank information here, so
That signature.
yeah, make sure I got that. So there were two, oh, here's the other.
Yeah. Either one, they're both the same.
Is there a signature page?
It
Yes.
doesn't need to be signed.
You know, I don't need to sign this.
No, you can throw that one away.
I'm not gonna throw anything.
Okay.
The other one just had the 30,000.
Yeah, the one that's is the 30.
Yeah, this is the one. I'm just gonna.
Yeah, okay. So this is the bond bank. We had a discussion with Eli last meeting, I believe,
Mhm.
who put this together.
2 meetings ago, I think.
Was it two? Yeah.
Sorry, this is Lori Beach.
Oh, okay. We have not been through all the details, and I imagine I'm not gonna understand the details if I were to go through it. What can you tell us, Josh and Bram, about this? I mean, this is what we've talked about, correct?
Yeah, so this is the paperwork for the, essentially what is the float funding for our, our outlay for all of the work associated with, FEMA refunded work and Federal Highway Works Administration work. And so we're gonna be, requesting like, the full amount on closing.
Mhm.
And then that will then go into our general fund, which will then flow into the reserve funds that were drawn down. Specifically, the one that is the ones for the water department and wastewater are were as a percentage of their total were hit quite hard. And I think as far as what is, my current understanding is that we've received about $1.2 million in invoices. And so the 1 million will go to recoup our accounts, pay up all of the outstanding invoices that are remaining. And basically it's a giant like reset button. And then in terms of the payment, when we get the money back from FEMA or Federal Highway for this emergency, the 50% of that must go immediately to the fund.
So just to kind of summarize a little bit, my understanding is the money is going into our accounts, but we can use it as like a line of credit. It will use it for payments to projects that had to do with the flood. And when we get reimbursed from FEMA or other agencies, then we're required to pay 50% of it back.
Yes.
And certainly we'll pay it all back if we can, but the
Right.
point is that,
The benefit is that given the unstable condition of like the water and wastewater funding plan at the moment is looking very complicated, not understanding exactly when the new gutter campus is gonna come online. And there's been delays and that isn't even closed yet, combined with the shortfall from all of the units that we've lost associated with both
Mhm.
floods. This is like really gonna provide a lot of relief to that.
and there's still questions on the road, what we do with roads, and so there's a lot of unknowns, but this is gonna significantly help.
Yeah, this will kind of put us back to, having the finances corrected as if there wasn't a flood.
Mhm.
And then with a payment cycle that we should be able to meet pretty easily with the, as the funds come back. It will definitely buy us a lot of time to continue to kind of recoup and readjust some of our finances.
And to get funds from FEMA and others.
Yeah, and others.
Okay, so you're looking for a signature on this?
I have a quick question.
Yes.
The other firm that we contracted with to help process all the FEMA stuff is also getting paid out of FEMA money. Does one come before the other, or?
There, believe that some of that is covered through a small grant that we received previously. That is, I don't have a figure in front of me, but that first initial hire of that,
It was
group,
covered.
It was 30,000.
It was 30,000, yeah.
Yeah.
That pays for much of that, and that's not that is a grant, that is not like,
Right.
it doesn't need to get paid out of this.
And ultimately, if that contractor uses more than that, which they probably will, the FEMA regulations say that you can have 5% of the award that FEMA pays us to go towards management. And
I think it
so
may even be a little higher.
it may be higher. I thought it
Right,
was,
but there was a percentage that.
It's a
that they get
percentage, yeah.
Above the grant. So
So-
my question, is there a pecking order here? Does the bond bank get the 50% first and then the consultant would have to wait? Is that?
So, yes, there
Okay.
is ultimately, this is money we as the town are borrowing. And so the agreement is that any money that comes back, we will pay 50% of that back to the bond bank. However, like being able to have access to very low interest funding, in light of, all of the things that are going on, puts us in a position to potentially consolidate some of our borrowing, bring down the, certain expenses by, like, for example, like, we didn't actually spend a lot on Plainfield that wasn't the flood, right? All of what we spent almost entirely, aside from the sand, was flood expenses in that emergency phase. And almost all of that is covered because most of the damage was in the federal highway corridor. So what we've actually spent absent, I think, 2-3 budget meetings ago, I think I said a number somewhere in the ballpark of about $545,000 dollars were really what the town had paid out. And normally, like, given all of the road work and activities that would go on, that number would be a little higher. And so
That was on that spreadsheet you gave us.
mhm.
yeah,
So I think like one way to think about it is we have very low cost of borrowing. We have an opportunity to draw down some of our loans at higher percentages, and then, being mindful of what the payment schedule is and how things shake out, but with the the grand list, which is TBD. We don't have any appraisal on what's taxable at Goddard to offset what's lost through abatement and through buyouts. So, this is gonna just smooth all of that out so that we can hopefully make good good investments in equipment, infrastructure that we have the ability to do right now. It is a disaster, but there are always silver linings.
well, the purpose of this is to help us smooth it out. So,
Yeah.
I think it's great that we have this option.
So do we just need a motion for you to sign these documents?
I believe that's what we need, yeah.
Yeah, because they need this by the 12th.
Motion to authorize Carl Blissick to sign MRCF loan documents to participate in the bond bank loan.
Second,
All those in favor, say aye.
aye. And for the record, Patty Gemelli is no longer,
Yeah, Patty
With
has
us.
left us, I think. I will sign this as chair.
There are some things I want to go over because there's a lot of places to sign.
And there's a signature needed by the clerk,
And one by the treasurer.
which you can do.
There's the treasurer page in here too.
There's just the one page, I believe, right?
no, I think there's signatures on many pages.
Yes, many pages of signature.
Are there? Okay, I just found the one.
You and I.
Should we like sign it from late meeting or do it all now?
So on,
Can I do
Can we
this?
not have a signing?
Yeah, can I do it?
While we have a bunch of other things on the agenda?
yes,
And
Can I-
maybe you can just do it. at the
I'll
end of
do
the
it.
meeting.
I'll come in.
Or do
if
it
that's okay.
before
Do it
you.
at the end of the meeting. before
Well,
we
I can
go
do
to
it
the-
before I leave.
At
Yeah,
the
let's
end of the
keep
meeting.
moving on, because we have a lot of stuff still to do.
Thank you.
Okay, so we did this, we did this. The Beach revolving loan document, that's Lori Beach, she's on with us. This has to do with, and you handed me something, Bram.
Yeah, that's what the lawyers sent.
Okay, I got some of this, not the whole thing. This has to do with the lien on her property and for the loan that she's
So
asking
let me
for.
back up, because I don't think that everybody's understands. The town has a revolving loan fund, which the town can lend money in extreme circumstances. Back in May, Ms. Beach basically applied for a loan of, it's around 16.5.
16,280, I think.
16,280. The challenge is that unlike most of the revolving loan funds, the revolving loan fund committee agreed to Ms. Beach's request that the $16,000 be paid off in one lump sum upon the sale of the house. And the lawyer, a lot of things happened, and we got the paperwork from the lawyers to, I think one is a promissory note.
A little bit of the background, because I was
So
on
the money was approved by the select.
by the select board, yeah, that's
And
important.
the loan, everything was approved already. What we're waiting on was the paperwork from the town attorney.
Yep,
And he sent, the following, documents. One is a mortgage agreement, I think, and the other is a promissory note. The reason for the delay was that most revolving loan funds are paid off more as a traditional loan through the bank. In this one, the town gives the money and agrees, to collect when the house is sold.
And is this,
and it should be clear that the money is not taxpayer money. This revolving loan fund was developed back in, I don't know, 30 years ago, when we had a block grant that was to be used for improving properties in town. And the towns had a chance of either giving grants or loaning the money to the people that wanted to do the work to improve their housing. So the town chose to loan it at a modest interest rate. And the interest rate that the committee many years ago had selected was 1% below prime. But that's kind of problematic, because we have to watch the prime rate, and it makes it more complicated. Bram and I talked about possibly just writing a check out of this account with the proper paperwork to protect the funds. And so that's where we're at, and that's what we just got.
Right.
and so in this case, it's a lump sum at sale. Is it something that's being actively sold, or is it?
It's, the loan was designed to finish a project on a home that then would be sold. And
So we haven't given the loan yet. We've approved the loan, we haven't given the loan.
the select
That's
board
correct.
approved the loan last spring, and it has not been issued yet.
And do we have the right paperwork there to approve the loan?
Right, I mean, I didn't go over the paperwork in detail, I wasn't part of the initial,
We got an email, I don't know, a week or so ago. Carl, you said something about a flat 5% interest rate.
That was,
as
yeah, that
opposed to
was something
prime.
that
Is
the
that
attorney,
what, is a question here, just what the interest rate is?
yeah, there is a question. I mean, we can go to the prime rate, which I think is 6.2, and go a percent of less than that, but it's continually changing.
yes.
So I think the attorney was saying, why don't you just pick a rate that's less than the prime rate, 5%. It's and go with that. And then it's only a 2-year loan. It's not like we have a 10-year mortgage here. So that was just his recommendation on the email he sent me. The complicating factor is because of the delays, Ms. Beach has had to pay more in taxes because she can't sell the house when she expected to. Now it's been a year later. So my thought was that one way to deal with that would be to have an even lower interest rate to help defray the cost that she's incurred because of these delays. But it would be nice to get this resolved. It was decided by the select board. It was agreed to, and we should do it.
Does she have anything she wants to say?
She, what?
She doesn't
She's
have her
here.
hand up, but she's here to.
Yeah.
I want to ask her.
Laura, if you want to chime in. If you're on.
You may have to unmute yourself. Or do you unmute?
Yeah. Or maybe we did such a great job of explaining things.
There she is.
Well, I'm just very grateful this is on the agenda and we're moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Lori.
So,
Carly, if you haven't read through that stuff, then maybe the best thing to do is have the select board authorize you to sign if you want to come in.
Well, don't we have to set a rate though? Or is there a rate in the document?
I don't know if there's.
I don't know if there is a rate in the document. The 5% that the lawyer threw out for me was, I think, just an idea. I don't think we had determined that.
When you said lower than, Carl.
Yes, it's lower than,
Help defray,
than prime.
Did you have, no, and you said even lower than
Oh,
5. To help
to-
defray.
to-
Did you have a number in mind? Did you have a proposal?
Well, if you were to take the $800 that she says she had paid addition, that it's gonna cost her additionally
Okay,
because of the delay.
okay.
If we went to 2.5%, then that would be about $800. I've done the calculation.
Was that your proposal?
I would propose we do that. The fund still gets paid, gets interest, and we get paid out, and then it seems fair and right.
That works for me.
If I could stop coughing, I'd make it.
Then I'll make a motion that we set the interest rate on Lori Beach's revolving fund loan at 2.5%.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You need a Heimlich or?
That was everyone,
I don't know what got in my throat.
4 select board members with Pattage not absent.
Now, I'll be on tomorrow for this.
Who seconded that? Sorry.
I did.
Peter. The bond bank, one of the pages that has to be signed has a, all or a majority of the select board, so we should, there are lines for everybody.
We need to amend the motion then?
I don't think so.
I think we're good.
Thank you.
Next, we have appointment of Scott Stewart to Water Commission.
Yes,
Okay.
I make a
wanna
motion
make a
that we
motion?
appoint Scott Stewart to the Water Commission.
Hold on, pass again.
second,
Who was seconded, sorry?
I'll second it.
Drink that. They have
All
it
those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And Scott is on the Water Commission.
4 ayes.
Fire and Rescue. Jonathan, thank you for coming in.
Yeah.
We just want to know how much money.
I went over the budget today, line by line, and there's 2 small items that we wanted to increase just a little bit because they were either at or above what we budgeted last year.
Okay, so it's pretty,
It's pretty much flat funding.
well, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay,
There was a small items and repairs that we'd come right up to the edge of last year, so we just bumped that up a little bit, and truck repairs and fuel, same thing, just above what was budgeted. The budget last year was increased in a bunch of areas to kind of match inflation and be more realistic. And
Sure, yeah,
those levels are fine for the coming year.
well, that's appreciated. We appreciate what you're doing and what your needs are. I think the town's been pretty supportive over the years, so we want to continue to do that.
Yeah.
So you have the specifics, Josh, on,
Yeah, that's in the,
that's what you get handed us?
yeah, that's the dated,
So we're, it's
Like
at the
draft.
bottom of the 100-3035, is that what you're?
Yeah.
Fire department?
yeah, it starts at, yeah, 100, that 30,
Sorry,
35.
right here, yeah.
But just three lines that changed. Just 3 lines changed.
Yeah, there's one section where previously they had building repairs and maintenance. They would spend out of that and then they would send the rest to reserve. What I suggested that would be better from a financial standpoint is let's just make a line item for incidentally, if you need some small thing that would be categorized like that, and then we can, like if there's an intermediate, smaller intermediate expense, we have an item for it, and then because going in the fund, coming out of the fund is a little more,
The total's the same. We just took a small piece of it and put it in like a, usable by the year budget number.
Well, as long as you're comfortable with that,
Yeah, it made sense.
we're all for efficiency.
So overall, it's like $4,500 higher than last year or something, I think,
I think a little less than that.
raising the $500 line,
2,000.
and then $1,000 for the fire truck repairs,
Transportation fuel. yeah.
2,500 for the small item repairs, and then,
That should be it for increases. The other one was just a shift from one
got it.
account.
Mhm. So it sounds like you made some changes to the how it's accounted for, but it,
Just for that
just
one.
that one.
just that one item, just to make it a little smoother.
Like, because when we put something in a reserve, like budgetarily, what we're saying is, this is not for this fiscal year we are budgeting for. This is money we are gonna sock away in that fiscal year for the future beyond that fiscal year.
Right.
So one thing that is not clear to the citizens of the town is that, is this all getting spent this year? Is this all going in a reserve? And while that's a distinction without a difference, it is nice to understand, like, this is not for now, this is for future.
That's an important distinction, yeah.
But then we didn't have a line for light bulb.
Thank you.
I think that's up to you guys, that kind of detail, as
Yeah,
far as I'm
we're-
concerned.
Makes good sense to both of us now.
Yep, yep. There's training in here somewhere, I didn't notice it, but. How often do you train? How often do you have training for the,
Fire department trains once a month and the rescue squad trains once a month.
oh, okay. Are those open or are they, if I wanted to sit in,
Well,
one, just
if Carl wanted to, can you get him up and down a ladder, or?
I can't get on a ladder anymore, that's my problem. I'm just curious how they,
Yeah.
How they go.
Equipment training.
There's just one other little difference in the new orientation of the accounts is all the loans are now grouped together, so there are fire department loans, the fire truck and the building revolving loan fund. The total expense to that in 24-25 was $25,285. And then that should be the same for I'm not sure what the interest is on. I have to go back and figure out what the interest is on that, but we'll get to that at another meeting. But it's
Essentially the same numbers that we saw last year.
pretty
All
close,
those
yeah.
notes are continuing.
I believe so. There's one that is going to get paid out though, so the year after, I don't think it will. If I remember it right.
Any other questions?
Thank you. Sorry
Okay.
we made you wait here all. evening
Yeah,
for that.
well, it was probably entertaining.
Interesting.
Graham?
Maybe it's Brian, the town clerk, maybe you covered this already, I don't know. Since Jonathan is here, perhaps is it appropriate to talk about the contract for?
That's
It's
next.
it's next on the
Next, yeah.
agenda.
We gotta stay for that.
Got it.
Yeah, and we want to ask about that.
Real quick before we get to that though.
Yeah.
At the end of this meeting or at some point, are we gonna to figure out the rest of the budget schedule? Are you all figuring that out?
The schedule.
Like
or-
who's coming in? So like making sure we're getting through all of these different.
Well, we have the, I know the library and the social concerns are coming in next time,
Okay.
which is,
Social concerns, I don't think the social concerns numbers are gonna differ from what's on that sheet
Okay.
okay, because you talked to Judy.
today.
Yeah, and there's really no need for them to come in unless we had specific questions.
Well, because we put their itemized, it goes on the town separately anyway, right?
Yeah, so it's really not,
Voted on,
So they'll need to explain it at the informational meetings and that town meeting.
Yeah.
Like, it's not
Yeah.
something that we need to,
the hope always is that we just agree with what they've come up with.
yeah, good luck.
So, okay, well, that's great. So the East Montpelier ambulance service contract would be the next item. Did I answer your question? No.
Well, no, I like this part of the overall, the general government section, which is the office, down, when we're gonna have that discussion, I'm guessing next week.
We'll have to do it next.
Listers, do we have to have them in? Conservation committee, like, which of these do we have to have in?
Emergency management,
Emergency management.
Right,
We only have one more meeting this month.
get them in.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. I'm personally, fine with
Yeah,
that. I'm actually just making sure that we have a plan to do that, and including, I know Josh has some great numbers here already, so he's obviously ready to talk about some of them. But I know some areas there's still not numbers, and so I want to make sure Josh is gonna be ready when we're ready.
right. I have talked to several of these and they'll be in next week, but,
You know,
but,
the lines below bookkeeper are kind of, well, they're not written in stone. We've discussed many of them already. So as it revolves around insurance.
yeah,
And so we're gonna have, maybe as part of this general government discussion, you're gonna have loan numbers as well,
Yeah,
at the bottom here.
Yeah.
And then we need to have
we should have. that.
Michael in.
Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, I just wanna make sure that like,
Do we have to do the cemetery?
well, that's, yeah, I just wanna like, if we can get as much of it done next week as possible, I would rather us be ahead of the game than rushing into January trying to finish everything.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't, the question regarding cemetery, I don't recall them. I don't know, did they come in and ask for money? I don't remember that.
I think they just have their own,
Yeah. I think
they are
Budget.
insulated from the town government.
they have a report in the town report.
Yes, but do they have their own spending authority?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yes,
It's
independent from the,
yeah.
apparently cemetery funds used to be the place the towns would raid to do other things, and so the state government has separated them
Yeah, very
from
much.
authority.
Yeah, I do remember one town meeting when they came to the town with a request to buy American flags to put on the veterans' graves.
and they wanted the town to pay for it.
And they wanted the town to pay for it, and the town said no very loudly because they were sitting on a pile of money.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And I think that was the last time. I do remember, though, that at this last town meeting, there was a request from the townspeople to have their funds listed in the report.
That was an error on my part.
Oh, okay.
It should have been, it was mistakenly, it was a printing error. And then I submitted the number. It should have been in there and it will be this time.
And I'll follow up with maybe with you, Josh, and the folks that we haven't talked to yet, that we need to talk to try and get people in next week. Next week. Okay, while Jonathan's here. The East Montpelier contract, you had a suggestion that they wanted a 3-year contract, I believe, and you were suggesting maybe we should try to do a 1-year.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem to make sense to commit to 3 years since the increases are so steep and we wouldn't be able to shop around. I did talk to Dave Danforth from Berrytown Ambulance and asked him for a proposal to have something to compare it to.
Yeah.
Which his board wouldn't do because they've just taken on Williamstown. So this year, they're not willing to take on anybody else, but they might next year. But I did get a lot of information about pricing from him. So they use per capita pricing based on the number of residents in the town, which makes perfect sense. East Montpelier clearly hasn't been doing that until now, and I don't know what they do now, but looking at their budget, like Marshfield, for instance, is paying significantly less than Plainfield already, even though they have close to doubling residents. So trying to figure out like what they're gonna do and how they're gonna do it.
If we had more time, we'd just do it before the contract
Exactly.
was signed, but we have to sign it this
Right,
month.
and
Yeah.
since it's for July of next year through the following year, committing for 3 years past July 2025, just seem, if we can get them to do a 1-year contract, that makes a lot more sense to me.
Is that something you work
I'm
with
happy
them
to ask
on?
them
Yeah,
about
yeah.
it, yeah, and that's what Berrytown does, they do 1-year contracts.
Oh,
It's not like
okay.
it's standard for ambulance services to do 3-year contracts.
Okay,
Carl, they had given us a 3-year contract
Yep,
with the wrong numbers in it,
it had the wrong dates.
had the wrong dates. I haven't seen a new document since then, so
Okay.
they're gonna have to create a
Yeah.
new
they'll
1-year
fix that.
document.
I can talk to them. I also got one information from them because one other thing that's unclear is whether they actually are understanding when they're in Plainfield or Marshfield. Because
Yeah.
Plainfield has so many zip codes that are in Marshfield, they may think that they're doing, 2/3 of their calls in Plainfield and 1/3 in Marshfield, when in fact it could be the opposite. When I asked the fire chief about it, he said he thought they just use zip codes. It'd be too hard for them to figure out any other way. But I mean, they're not billing by call, so it's not like they're saying, well.
okay.
But I'm just wondering.
But
if part of
aren't they
their-
basing some of the rates on
That's,
costs?
well, we don't know what.
Well,
they-
cause didn't you say Marshfield is paying less? I mean, they're a bigger
lot
town
less.
and they're paying a lot less than us, so.
Yes,
They
And they're
must
far,
be.
they're far
yeah.
away for many of them.
yes,
Yeah.
but if you look at what, for instance, Callis is paying, or what East Montpelier is paying, like, none of it makes any sense, it's like totally random, so.
Well, Callis and East Montpelier formed a
they have an
merger.
Agreement,
Yeah, an agreement which they put into their capital expenditures as
Yeah.
well. So they have a different partnership, but
right, but I mean, if you're looking at a per capita rate, East Montpelier is actually paying a huge amount. And Marshall is paying a tiny amount, so, yeah, I mean, I think getting a little bit more information from them about how they're structuring their payments stuff. And also, it's unusual that they don't include any of the money that the ambulance bills in any of their budget stuff, that all goes into the town fund. Which is like, that's their town business, but
Yeah.
if they come to, I also was looking at the number of transport and no transport calls. Because they get paid for every time they transport somebody, but they don't get paid for if they don't transport somebody. So for instance, in 23, there was like 77 calls and 55 of them were transports. So they're
Huh.
making, they're billing a significant amount of money for all of those calls, but that's not going into the budget. So that's another thing to kind of, it's hard to discuss it with them because it's really not technically our business, but at the same time, they need to explain to us why they're increasing us
Well, they-
50% each year.
Yeah, they should explain to
Well,
us.
and the way he explained it at the time that he came was that per capita, people in East Montpelier are paying a lot more than us, and so they're getting us to the same parity as East Montpelier, but
I don't
it
think
seems
that's
like there's a
actually-
lot of,
I don't think that's true. I
yeah,
think
well, that's
thinks it.
that's what he explained, I mean,
Yeah,
that's how he
I think
explained
He
it.
understands it that way, but I think he's wrong. Looking at the numbers myself, that's not what I got out of it. So I'm happy to talk to them and say, first of all, you have to produce something with the correct dates and the right,
Yep.
entities and everything. And second, we really would like to do a 1-year contract.
Yeah,
and this
what
is,
is, sorry, what is our option if they don't like that?
I don't know, they have an option. I
Okay.
mean, that's the thing is that, I don't know. Like, what do
Okay.
you do if you don't get an ambulance service? They're still gonna send an ambulance because they have to.
Well,
But it becomes like a,
but the ambulance, they can bill your insurance company for.
right, that's what, so they're billing the insurance company for like, say, 55 calls a year in Plainfield. At I mean, it's gotta be $600 or $800 minimum just to transport somebody to the hospital, so they're definitely getting revenue from the town, in addition to the money that the town is paying, like, to have the service be available for everyone. And.
Hey,
I-
Jonathan,
talked to
I-
them about
John, I heard from somebody, this is Stuart, I heard from somebody it was, I heard it from somebody it was $1,600 per transport, but I can't validate that as being true.
that actually might be right. I know it's a lot.
Yeah, it sounds a bit.
And I talked to the
He's
East
the head of
Mon-
fast one.
I talked to the East Montpelier head of service, and I'm telling you, all I got was a whole bunch of hand waving. I got no good information from her on this at all. It was like, oh, everything else costs a lot more money now. That's why we're entitled to raise this 15% across three years, and they are so not. And they do not know, and she does not know how this is all put together. They just don't. No one knows. And I couldn't
Can
get
you
any good
identify,
information.
can you identify yourself for the record?
I'm sorry. I'm Stuart Hancock, and unfortunately for me, Jonathan asked me if I would take over the Fast Squad, and I said yes.
Ah, okay, well, welcome on.
Thank you.
Okay,
Josh,
Just like to give some background on what we've budgeted for ambulance service, like beginning in the budgetary year of 2021, our budget was $52,062, and we had a 3% budget increase for the 21-22 year, and then we had a 3.5% budget increase for 22-23, and we had a 2.5 increase for bring us to 23-24, and we had a 3% increase in 24-25. So the 10.92% increase of what I've put as a suggested number here as a placeholder, being like 10.9% budgetary increase, you know, it has not been like the last few years have not been 3% cost increases for anything. I mean, you know, like hot dogs at Costco aside, there's not been anything that's been 3% price stable in some time. So I think that we are seeing this jump because contractually and what we've budgeted hasn't really kept pace with what our expected costs probably should have been going forward from the last few years. That makes sense.
And I think some of that makes sense, but when they can't show us, we have this many calls, and they can't even show us that the calls that they say are ours. And then because of that per capita, and we're doing the same per capita to Marshfield, and that's why like, if they can't show us like transparency on what we're paying and why, just saying it's a 15% increase, you used to pay this, we're adding 15%.
15% each year compounding. So
Yeah.
At the end of 3 years, it's a huge number. and it's
yeah,
like-
yeah.
It's a giant jump.
Well, I think if we can get that 1-year agreement,
I'll talk to them.
and we'll start with that, and then we have some time to really dig into it and try to get all
Yeah,
these
that way we can get
answers.
more information, we can get them to give us more about what it is that they're doing, because they're obviously changing their price structure.
Is the contract up at the end of this calendar year?
What's that?
The contract? is
No,
up
it's July of 2025.
Okay, so we don't have to approve this. We
This
want
is-
the number for the budget, but
Exactly.
we do, okay.
Yeah, we have time to
Got it.
deal with them, but we need to just make sure there's money in the budget to do whatever.
Yeah.
We do.
Got it.
Yeah,
so there's no action to take this evening on this matter.
We don't have a contract to sign, right?
yeah, there's no action.
Okay.
But that's good, it's good to know, and if we have to present the 10+% to the town in March, we'll do that. But if we discover something before then, we can always say, well, it was 10%, but now it's, 8.
10% what he's done is he's kind of extrapolated what they undercharged for 3 years. is
Yeah,
basically what
yeah.
he's saying.
No,
Now
I
it's gonna
get-
jump up to catch up, which is.
I get
fair.
that, we'll just have to explain it at town meeting.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I trust they need more money. I would like them to verify how that.
Right.
Well, and they may need more money, but I also want to verify that they're asking equally for more money from everyone.
They're definitely asking like the town clerk from Marshfield was like, they're gonna like ask more than our fire department budget if they bill us per capita what they say they're gonna. So she's
Yeah.
in the same boat where it's like super sticker shock.
Yeah,
Well,
okay,
then the other thing we should do is keep a very close relationship with Barry, hoping we can switch.
Yeah.
And if they only take on one town next year, it's not Marshfield. it's
So the
us.
thing about Barry is, at their per capita rate now, they would be more expensive than East Montpelier for the next 2 years.
Yeah.
But the third year, when East Montpelier makes its final jump, they would be less. They also are not the same thing, because Berrytown has a paramedic or an AEMT on every ambulance, and so
Yeah.
it's kind of it's not apples to apples. East
Level
Montpelier
of
is
service.
offering- Yeah, I mean, they're excellent EMTs, and they don't hesitate to call a paramedic if they need it, but what they send out on every call is different. And so their operating budget has got to be like way smaller because the staff is way less qualified, the ones that are, out there.
Yeah.
today.
What if we had our own ambulance service?
We don't want to do that.
We got a little one right here.
Okay, so we'll ask you to
I'm
continue to
not
chase this
gonna
down, and,
negotiate with that and figure
but
out-
we'll use that in the budget as Josh has recommended.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, so, I guess there's no action we need to take there. I think we're set. Jonathan, thank
Sounds
you.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
you.
Take
So
care.
Josh, we have the road report and then,
Thank you, Stuart. Also.
5 minutes.
We still have roads.
We still have roads, excellent.
The road department, and it's snowing, and I can't wait for all the people to hear me. Let's see, I was going to follow up with Ross Gowan at Municipal Assistance today and bring that to my report this evening, but everything else went long. I think the main, I think one of the main things is that, people are getting used to their new traffic patterns, and it's giving some people frustrations with not having the openings there. And so,
You have to explain what you mean. Openings where?
like, we still have closure on Brook Road.
Yeah, okay.
People have to go over East Hill.
Yeah.
So there's a variety of new traffic patterns, and I think that is giving people some frustrations. Which I'm completely sympathetic to. So it's kind of an opportunity to explain, like, here's why we're doing these things, and I think one of the things I'd like to do, I would hope that at some point we'd be able to pull together a public meeting to discuss Brook Road, but I still feel like it's, we're still a little bit unprepared for that now.
We need numbers. I mean, I
When is the
can't,
engineering scope?
we can't, yeah. When is the engineering supposed to happen? The
Well-
integrity group is supposed to come up,
The
right?
integrity group did their survey, they are presenting some things to, I believe some of that is gonna come back to the working group for the grants.
Okay, because, yeah, we'll talk about that tomorrow, I'm sure.
And then either Karen or Gary or I will bring back some of that.
Yeah,
So that's kind of all where I'm at with the roads right now.
I would think that if we can get that information, then we should have a town meeting and talk about it. Presenting what we know, because we can't make a decision without knowing what the impact on the taxpayers are.
And you can't do a lot of engineering and stuff.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I don't have anything on the roads. Any questions? You have a question, Frank?
Yeah, I think, just want to point out to everybody, there is a form on the website
Oh, thank you.
to report incidents, and if conditions aren't right, it's much more efficient to use that form. It's a paper trail. And I would also just say that our usual backup third person is recovering from eye surgery, will be back, but we're down person.
Yes.
That affects response time, and it's not making excuses, it's just explaining what the challenges are.
Well, when you have 3 road crew people normally, and now we have 2, there's gotta be something gives, so.
You had a comment, but I have a question.
Yeah,
also.
and regarding the sidewalks,
That.
Michael and I have kind of come to the conclusion that the most efficient thing would be to purchase a newer, smaller, small tractor with equipment to remove the snow and ice effectively, and to sand, in lieu of bidding that out because no one has taken us up on it. What may make sense is to hire either a seasonal employee or part-time in the period in which like we have people out, you know, or, you know, for some of that period of time to handle that. And I think in terms of what we've contracted before for the, you know, for the labor on that compared to like bringing that in-house, saves a lot of money.
Well, if our crew can handle it, that'd be great.
I think in a different year and a different time, they probably could. And then there's an opportunity for water department to share that equipment.
Yep,
It would give them some more nimble, snow removal abilities that are quite helpful for things like bring the hydrants and other there's tight spots at the water department that they could use that equipment.
I wanted to share, I mean, you've come before us before to share what you had discussed with Michael about this smaller piece of equipment to work sidewalks. I guess I'm sensitive to, as someone who like walked here, I know that this town right now is not accessible for elders and anybody using assistive equipment.
Yeah.
And so I guess I'm looking for a timeline. When can this piece of equipment come online? Because it is snowing again outside right now.
I know. It is, the equipment's under order and I should have a sales agreement coming, that will come today. And then we have the opportunity to finance it or to draw it from the equipment fund. At the current, currently where we are for funds, I don't think it's a problem to pull that from the equipment fund, less than $50,000, and or finance it for a period of time until some of the bigger bills get smoothed out and then pay that down.
Thank you. I think the on order piece is what I was looking to hear. Thank you. I'm glad to hear it's on order.
Brams, yeah.
Just so people understand, we have had, I know of at least 2 townspeople who have come in with some light equipment, shovels and so forth, and offered to work and do stuff. We're prohibited as a municipality. We need to have people have insurance. And that is a real, you know, if people are wondering, you know, why this is so challenging to find people, there are people actually who come forward. But the firms that have done it and done it in the past, it's not worth their while given all their own expenses. So that's just a little bit of background.
That's good to know,
We've been
though.
trying.
You have to be funded and insured, and
This town is full of volunteers and it's a shame they can't be used, but I understand just can't do it.
Well, you know, we were talking a little bit about this when we were talking about the highway department budget. And, you know, we're likely to have more sidewalks in the future than less. And
Yeah.
so this is, I think, a prudent step.
wait until you see the next budget season where I have to create a parks department.
Along the brook.
We'll talk about that next
Yes.
round. I would like to finish up. We have accounts payable to approve.
No, we've got to do the things we added to the agenda.
Oh, yes,
Excessive weight permit and the letter to the state regarding holding town harmless for flood related tax.
thank you. Yes, we do have those 2 things. So the letter to the you
Yeah.
have,
I sent you guys all a draft. It's a letter to the governor, the commissioner of taxes, and our legislative delegation. Last session, the legislature passed and the governor signed on February 7th, Act 82, an act relating to state education, property taxes, flood-related damage. It was only for the
that year.
2023
Yeah.
flood, although they did have a exemption for 2 years for people to not have to pay taxes on any FEMA assistance that they
Oh,
received. Right, FEMA, the feds don't charge tax on that, but the state had to do
oh,
that.
oh,
So they covered that for 2 years, but they only covered the hold harmless on the state education tax for 1. The person who sponsored that last year was Senator Cummings, who chairs the Senate Finance Committee. And this would go through that committee. So we did get one piece of feedback. The draft I said was, this is estimated to affect between 8 and 11% of our grand list. Sandy says we should just say it's approximately 11% of the
Just say
grand
it,
list.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so,
so we'll make that change.
yeah, and I can, do we have like official letterhead that this would go on? Okay,
Just send me the text you want
yeah,
and I'll put it on letterhead.
okay. So I would move that with that amendment to approximately 11% that we authorize Carl to sign this on behalf of the select board.
Second,
All those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Okay, I'll take that up.
It'll hopefully be.
Four
I'll have it
ayes.
ready for you.
Yeah, if not, I've been around this week, so.
Yeah.
I might be late getting in tomorrow. I just have to do plowing and stuff.
It'll be,
Okay.
it'll be in your inbox.
That inbox? Okay, and the other
You may
one,
already have it, except for that change.
You could just,
I'll send it
I
again.
just want to make sure that
Send you the clean copy.
I just want to make sure I get the right wording.
and the other item that we added was the Blair tree hauling permit,
Wait.
Yeah.
weight permit. And what can you tell us about this?
It's mostly just, I think that we get a lot of people requesting weight permits to come across the town.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we even get permits for people who are only utilizing Route 2.
Oh,
I passed this along to Michael, he didn't see a problem with it. And because all of the insurance and everything looked good. It's just, I think it's a cover your butt kind of thing for the hauler. Dotting their T's and crossing their I's around making sure that they're not in violation of any towns. Weight limits,
so you and Michael are on board with this?
Mhm.
And the paths of travel you said are restricted to Route 2? They're not using
No,
the local
I don't
roads?
know what route they're planning on taking, but it's a common situation where like someone will request a overweight permit. Typically they're not terribly frequent and I didn't see any reason not to approve it.
Would it be a period of time or is it just for like one event or?
I think it's just for one truck.
Okay, so obviously in mud season, we don't allow overweight vehicles. So this would only cover up, so.
I'd have to, Michael would know more than that.
Yeah, okay. Because I would rather not have logging trucks come over East Hill Road if they could avoid doing that, because especially if it's snowing. But if you could get that, I don't see any reason not to authorize that, but it'd be nice to know what period of time they're talking about.
Is it say on that or?
There's nothing in the.
It's nothing, we added it. It was added because
Carol didn't send, because Carol is the one that asked for it to be added. She didn't send any information.
Yeah.
But I don't think.
Please add under other business to approve an excess weight permit for Blair's forestry hauling. So we don't have any detail.
The permit's not, okay.
Yeah. So I guess we should get more detail before we.
It's mostly just a formality in that it usually goes to the select board.
Yeah, it often has in the
If
past.
the road foreman doesn't have a problem with it, I don't know, to make it a deal.
Neither do we.
I guess the question is, do they, like, is it happening soon enough that we have to do something now?
Yeah,
They probably want to know because they're probably hauling logs is what's happening, is my guess.
Well, yeah, I just didn't know if they're hauling logs this week or if they're hauling logs.
Yeah, we don't know. All we know is
Would
what
you
Carol
like
said.
to Make a motion that Carl can sign it when available.
can we do that?
Yeah, yeah, we can do that. We could make it just for this one this one request, or we
So the
could,
stipulations that we're missing are the timeline until when, because this does not,
Well, if it's even an until when, if it's just for one load, then it's just a one load.
my guess is they're working a project and they're probably gonna have a number of loads. But we just don't want to give them a blanket
yeah,
approval because then they might be getting into soft road season.
Why don't,
They could hit the soft road season on Thursday when
true.
there's flood
well,
warnings.
we want to just say to the end of the year, and if we find out 2 days from now that they need it till the end of January or something, we can just deal with it again next week.
I thought the permit was in the packet, permit has the details, we can.
Yeah,
put it
it's,
off until-
I didn't see it in here.
I just didn't know if they needed it this week and then we're not giving it to them. I don't know.
I don't see it in here.
I mean, I
So-
think, like, Dan makes a good point. That, you know, until the end of the year, we're probably not going to be
Yeah,
soft on the road.
Yeah.
department.
Yeah.
Is that the only concern?
Well, I
that
think if
the
we
ladies
find out,
have here?
you know, we don't like what's going on, then we can always retract it in a week. I mean, if there's a time sense, I don't know. Carol wanted to make sure it got on today's agenda, so I feel like there might be something time sensitive about it, but
yeah,
And you make a fair point, we could retract it.
yeah.
Upon review, it seems problematic.
I'll make a motion to issue an excessive weight permit for Blair's Forest hauling.
Do we want to put a time?
One
on it?
second.
Do we want to put a time?
Oh,
on that?
yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
until the end of December 2024.
Second,
all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
4 eyes.
Okay, so we'll, they'll be okay for the short term and then. But I think in the future, we'd want to know more about it. We're on to the approval of warrants.
Make a motion that we approve accounts payable for November 25th and 27th, 2024, and payroll for November 27th and December 5th, 2024.
Second,
All those in favor? Aye,
Aye.
aye. 4 eyes.
okay. Approval of draft minutes, we have two, we have November 25th, and you said there was, December 2nd. We have a motion on that.
Motion to approve the draft minutes for November 25th and December 2nd.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Aye. 4 eyes.
okay. Next select board meeting is next Monday. And it's officially a budget meeting, but as we have been, take on other issues if necessary, but we really want to get through the budget items.
Yes.
And have people visiting here that need to talk to us, so.
You said you had somebody, I don't know, you talked to, Karen Seeger, or maybe it was, Josh who said
You still need to sign it.
social concerns, you talked to
Yeah.
the recipients?
Yeah, so you can, if they have a number that we can,
Like you have a bunch of numbers that you put in here, is that a result of? So-
They're accurate as to their report.
Yeah.
So like, for example, Washington County Mental Health didn't have anything in here. Is this just because they didn't submit or because the committee?
I believe it's because they didn't submit, but it's gonna be in their report, so.
Okay,
that's usually the case, is somebody doesn't submit, they don't get money.
all right, so and you did break out social services differently, which is good, like the GMTA the Cutler Memorial Library, Center for Economic Development. Do
Yeah.
we need to
Helen Memorial Library is not in.
No, it's social service.
social
Yeah,
service?
it's
Yeah,
in a
that's what I'm saying,
category.
things that aren't social
Right here.
concerns, but also, yeah.
Yeah.
As he's rearranging the
Right.
chart of accounts. So it's like, but we should hear from the library, I would think.
We're gonna have it next week.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they're coming next week and, who else was it? Well, I don't really think we need social concerns. If you've already gone through that list and they,
I mean, the town decides that.
the
so
town
we
decides it
just-
anyway.
We just need to know the.
We need to know.
We told them the full number, right? Don't we give them a number and then they fill up that number?
No,
Not
exactly.
not,
They usually solicit numbers from the people and
Yeah.
some people drop out, some people want more and kind of. adds up.
Oh, I thought we gave them like a total.
no.
$8,950.
It comes out
Yeah.
roughly the same, but not in a formal way.
Got it.
Okay,
Alright.
can I get a
I'll motion
motion?
to adjourn,
Sure. Thank you.
13 PM.
8:13.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Aye, 4 ayes.
thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Charlie.
So
We off recording?
if you need to
Now, I'll report it.
continue